Now, the primary reason for any fitness enthusiast to complain of shoulder pain, lower back discomfort, any form of joint pain, prolonged soreness, it all stems from inefficient exercise selection, as well as improperly performing exercises. Understand that bodybuilding is a science, contrary to what the many ignorant masses who would tell you that all individuals must be trained differently due to their unique bodies. Tall or short, fat or thin, black or white, human anatomy is human anatomy, and physics is physics. Your muscles only have one perfect movement, as well as one perfect intensity for muscle growth. Now, as you can clearly see, what has been missing from the mainstream fitness instruction is a standardized set of rules or criteria by which all exercises can be evaluated. Hello and welcome. I am Coach Castle, a certified biomechanics expert, nutritionalist, and efficiency coach. Subscribe to this channel to learn the most efficient ways to maximize your muscle growth and recovery, enhance your body, and advance your mind, all using the latest science. Welcome to Castle's Corner. Hello and welcome to Castle's Corner. I am Coach Castle, and today I will be going over how to select your exercises, why it is so important that you select the most efficient exercises, how to do so, how to know how much you're supposed to be training, how many sets, how many reps, how much intensity, how many days a week, what kind of a split you should do, as well as the perfect workout schedule. That's what I'll be covering. This will be the 12 rules of intelligent bodybuilding, broken down and summarized scientifically for you. I hope you guys enjoy this video. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, the 12 rules of intelligent bodybuilding by me. Now, to understand the science of bodybuilding, some basic things need to be addressed. First, for starters, while it is true that as humans we differ in a large spectrum of personalities, outer appearance, and genetics, our human anatomy and physiology are essentially the same. Now, the theory of evolution is how humanity has achieved its current biology and structure. Due to the process of evolution, our bodies have slowly adapted over time to better suit their environmental needs. And the forces of physics have also played a significant role in determining the shape of our bodies, as well as how they function, included, but not limited to, the theory of gravity. Now, gravity is also environmental and has affected everything in our world. Everything from the way that we build our homes, buildings, monuments, how we walk or drive on wheels. These forces are at play around us all the time, although invisible to the human eye. Paleoanthropology is the study of fossils, their bones, joints, and how they evolved over the millennia. By looking at these bones of our ancestors, we can see what bones and joints have been designed to do or have not been designed to do evolutionarily. Not in our entire human evolutionary history has it been necessary for us to overpress anything. Now, this is since we have evolved slowly from four-legged creatures into upright walking, two-legged creatures. Now, an example of this that I use commonly is the incline bench press or the overhead press. Now, performing any incline bench movement or overhead shoulder pressing movement will do significant damage to your shoulder joint over time. Now, this is because those muscles which operate those bones already have a natural resistance curve and range of motion. Overhead pressing movements are not a natural movement, therefore your joints and cartilage will be damaged. Now, the primary reason for any fitness enthusiast to complain of shoulder pain, lower back discomfort, any form of joint pain, prolonged soreness, it all stems from inefficient exercise selection, as well as improperly performing exercises. Understand that bodybuilding is a science, contrary to what the many ignorant masses who would tell you that all individuals must be trained differently due to their unique bodies. Tall or short, fat or thin, black or white, human anatomy is human anatomy, and physics is physics. Your muscles only have one perfect movement, as well as one perfect intensity for muscle growth. Now, as you can clearly see, what has been missing from the mainstream fitness instruction is a standardized set of rules or criteria by which all exercises can be evaluated. There needs to be a checklist of mechanical factors that can be applied across the board to all resistance exercises, which allows people to determine whether an exercise is optimally productive or highly efficient and safe, or high risk with little payoff. The fitness industry has failed to acknowledge that there are biomechanical factors that determine how efficient an exercise is, as well as how bad it is, whether there is sufficient stimulus for muscle growth, or is there little no intensity, meaning little to no growth. Now, this absence of a scientifically principled approach has resulted in bad exercises, or high-risk, little reward exercises, being unjustly glorified due to their ability to be commercialized, as well as the egocentric nature of human beings exploited. As a consequence of this, at the same time, highly efficient exercises, or really good exercises, have been overlooked, as well as simple basic intensity principles swept underneath the rug in favor of more commercially viable ones. Now, to define a bad exercise is a movement that unnecessarily loads and or strains non-target muscles more than they load the targeted muscle. They have minimum efficiency with loading the targeted muscle, and they are the ones that waste time and energy because they either fail to deliver the target muscle's operating lever or limb into the ideal direction, or they use the direction of resistance that fails to provide correct alignment with the targeted muscle's ideal resistance curve, meaning a loss of efficiency. Now, if you have spent any time in the gym performing conventional weight training exercises like barbell squats, leg presses, overhead presses, incline bench presses, upright rows, deadlifts, T-bar rows, hanging leg raises, kettlebell swings, you name it, etc., then I can say with 100% certainty that you have not been exercising efficiently, you have certainly damaged your body, you have spent way more time and energy than is necessary in the gym, you have not stimulated your target muscles as efficiently as you could have, and you have exposed your joints and spine to a significant and unnecessary risk of being injured. So, taking a principled approach to training, or taking a scientific approach, which by the way, you use science in your life for absolutely everything. Why wouldn't you use it for exercise? Taking a scientific approach would mean simply analyzing how forces affect the levers inside the human body, or biomechanics, as well as following and observing certain intensity and time under tension principles, meaning basically maximizing your muscle growth and recovery while maintaining and minimizing damage and time spent in the gym. Now, these principles of physics, combined with some basic concepts regarding the human muscular skeletal system and muscle physiology, allows us to determine which exercises are best for each muscle group and how much intensity is required to grow new tissue, basically, and to recover optimally. Now, I'm sure you have probably all now gathered by this point, if you're still with me, exercise selection is not a random phenomenon. It's not a mystery. It is a well understood and well documented science, which is what I'll be getting into now, which is the checklist for optimum exercise selection. Okay, these are the 12 rules, if you will. So, rule number 1, the efficiency or value of an exercise. So, the basic principles of mechanical physics, or in this case, the levers or bones of your body working against external forces that are acting upon your bones from different angles. So, understand that different angles of force on your body will produce different outcomes, meaning everything from your body position relative to the load or the weight being used, movement pattern through the exercise, and many other factors will result in different outcomes of efficiency as well as different outcomes of damage to your body. Now, every exercise you can perform, from body weight to barbell, cable, or machine, doesn't matter. They all have a different biomechanical profile or rating on a scale of efficiency. Efficiency in this case means the amount of effort or weight used versus the amount of actual load being delivered to the targeted muscle. So all exercises have a different place in the hierarchy of efficiency, risk to reward, if you will. Almost all of the exercises have some degree of benefit, even the exercises that do not rate highly on the efficiency scale. However, if you only perform the most efficient exercises, you will obviously receive the most efficient result or the most effectiveness in your exercise. Effectiveness in this case would mean maximally damage the greatest number of muscle fibers as rapidly as possible to allow for maximum recovery time and maximum muscle growth without damaging your body in any way. So, let me give you guys an example of poor exercise selection. So the example would be hanging leg raises. So the common myth, hanging leg raises target your lower abs. So here's the actual data. Hanging leg raises do not train your lower abdominal. This is because there's no such thing as lower abdominals. You only have one ab muscle, which is divided by tendons and ligaments. Now these are genetic and unalterable. Furthermore, your abdominals do not connect to your legs at any place in your body. The muscle responsible for the raising of your legs is your psoas muscles. What you are feeling, the ab work of the movement, is an isometric muscle contraction or a static hold in your abs. A static hold is the least productive for muscle growth as it has no range of motion at all, meaning the muscle fibers are only damaged in the one localized area, that really small area that they're working. So the abdominal's primary function is to curve your spine by bringing your lower rib cage to your pelvis. Now, if your spine is not curling in the correct resistance curve during the movement, you will not be training your abdominals. Now, this is just one example of many poor exercise selections resulting in no damage being done to your abdominals. Translation, no ab growth. Your abs don't connect to your legs. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to train your abs using that movement. It's just a bad choice, and yet everyone does them. Now, let's go ahead and move on to rule 2. So, rule number 2. Does it pull insertion to origin in a straight line? So, always choose an exercise that allows the operating bone of the target muscle to move directly towards that muscle's origin. The more directly towards the muscle origin, the more efficient the movement is. The less directly the bone pulls towards the muscle origin, the less percentage is actually being loaded onto the targeted muscle because other muscles are engaged, participating and assisting, basically. So think of it like this. If I gave you a big rope and I tied it to a refrigerator and I told you to pull the refrigerator, you would only be able to pull the refrigerator towards yourself, no other direction. So the shortest pathway between 2 points is a straight line. And the more you're able to pull the insertion to the origin in a straight line, the better results, as more muscle fibers will fire more efficiently. Easy enough to understand. So rule number 3. This is an important one and very misunderstood, although it's really short. So does it have full range of motion? More range of motion is always better than less range of motion in the hierarchy. Okay? So in the hierarchy, a static hold or isometric contraction would be lowest, followed by a partial range of motion, followed by a full range of motion, and finally followed by a full range of motion within the correct resistance curve. Makes sense, right? So more range of motion, always better. More range of motion in the correct resistance curve is the most efficient. So there'll be more on that in rule 8, by the way. Now, moving forward. Rule number 4. Is this a bilateral or a unilateral exercise? So, example would be, does this exercise involve independent limb movement? So an example would be if you hold dumbbells in each hand and perform bicep curls, well, that's one. Or do the limbs share an instrument? This would be a barbell. So your hands would be holding a bar together performing the bicep curl. So both of these are different. It's not the same thing. So bilateral movement causes bilateral deficit or a slight weakness in the muscle of both sides due to the fact that they're helping each other. Unilateral exercise creates cross-education, or basically a small benefit to the muscle of the non-working side, and allows for greater focus and intensity generation in the target muscles. This is why we train, of course, unilaterally whenever possible for efficiency. Moving on to rule number 5. Is the resistance in optimum alignment for the target muscle? So choose an exercise that allows for the resistance to be directly opposite the origin of the muscle and in line with the muscle fibers when they're in their anatomical natural pathway. For every degree outside of the optimum angle of alignment, insertion to origin in a straight line, the target muscle will receive less load, as other, usually weaker muscle groups take over, as they are now being loaded due to their positioning relative to the load. Now, exercises that allow your target muscle to be positioned directly opposite the resistance are the most efficient. Whatever muscle is positioned directly opposite the resistance will be the most loaded, whether you want it to be or not. That's how it works. And likewise, for every movement you perform which is not optimally aligned and angled so that the line of force is directly opposite the target muscle, will have less efficient results due to the loading of the non-target muscles which are assisting it. Rule number 6. Does reciprocal intervention interfere? Reciprocal intervention is the inability of the opposite muscle group to be loaded simultaneously, as the brain sends inhibitory synapse to the muscle opposite the muscle under load, preventing it from being activated. An example for this would be when performing a standard dumbbell curl. As the bicep contracts, it sends an excitatory synapse to be registered by the spinal cord, which in turn sends back an inhibitory synapse to the triceps to prevent its engagement in the movement. So what this means is that our muscles act in pairs and coordinate with each other by simultaneously relaxing and contracting as a protective measure to help keep us safe from injury. If both opposing muscles were to fire simultaneously, not allowing the other to relax, a tear in the muscle probably would occur. So let's take a look at this with the tricep kickback as an example. Most of you are familiar with the tricep kickback. When you're performing the dumbbell triceps kickback, you would be standing upright, bent at 90 degrees roughly at the hip, allowing your torso to be parallel with the floor as well as your upper arm bone. The tricep would be opposite the floor. The active lever in this case is the forearm, which at the beginning of the movement will be hanging straight down, parallel with gravity, perpendicular with the floor, not placing a load on either the bicep or the tricep. That's because your forearm, again, is neutral with gravity. The rear deltoid is actually the muscle which will be holding your arm in that position, just kind of dangling there. If you were to take your hanging forearm and move it in the direction towards your face, outside of the invisible line of gravity, you would be loading the bicep with weight, although inefficiently. You'd be loading the bicep because the forearm lever is now active and is more perpendicular with gravity. Now, if you were to take the hanging forearm and pull it backwards towards your back and your butt, you would be loading the triceps with weight. When performing the triceps kickback exercise, you begin half the movement by activating the bicep, or even just swinging it forward using momentum and using that momentum to pull it back. This would be deactivating the triceps when you activate the biceps. And then the second half of the movement activates the triceps, again, although very inefficiently as it's outside of alignment and the resistance curve. And this will be deactivating the bicep as the tricep is now engaged. Now, I know this sounds efficient to some, but it's actually the exact opposite. Neither muscle is receiving a full load in the correct resistance curve, and the deactivation of the biceps and tricep during the movement is really counterproductive. Now, this is important for you to understand, as the levers in your body have opposing muscle groups, and they should not be attempted to be trained at the same time. This causes a lack of efficiency, increases the risk of injury. It's just not good. Don't do it. So let's move on to rule number 7. Efficiently and using opposite muscles for planning your training. So this would be back to the reciprocal intervention. I'm going to give you guys a list of opposing muscle groups for your efficient training, and we'll get into it right after. So here's a list of groups for you guys. These are opposing muscle groups. As already was mentioned, we have the biceps and the triceps. Then you have your pectorals and your middle trapezius, your upper trapezius, your lower trapezius, your abdominals against your erector spinae, your quadriceps and your hamstrings, your calves, your tibius anterior, forearm flexors, forearm extensors, anterior deltoid, posterior deltoids, gluteus maximus, and your hamstrings, your hip flexors, lateral deltoid, latimus dorso, your internal shoulder rotator, your external shoulder rotator. Now, by utilizing this information about reciprocal intervention, it is then possible to plan your workouts efficiently, meaning to target opposing muscle groups that have nothing to do with each other neurologically, so there is no need to take a break in between sets at the gym. Now, this will be translating to a very short and very intense workout. We're going to talk about why that's important later. An example of this principle would be to perform bicep curls immediately followed by tricep presses. Now, this is maximally efficient and possible because when one muscle is operating, the other is neurologically switched off, meaning the bicep is fully recovering while you're training your triceps. So an efficient arm day in the gym would look something like forearm flexor curls, followed by forearm extensors, followed by bicep curls, followed by tricep presses, and then you would just cycle through them in that order 3 times. Now, the reason for this is to give each muscle group roughly 5 to 6 minutes to recover fully before it's trained again. This is the most efficient way to train your muscle groups, as they have 5 to 6 minutes to fully recover before they're being trained again. However, you never actually have to stop performing exercises. You don't have to take breaks. So compare this to performing the same 4 exercises separately and individually with a break in between each set, and you would spend roughly 4 to 5 times the amount of time necessary in the gym without this information. And the result is significantly less efficient time-wise as well as intensity-wise due to a lesser amount of intensity being generated overall. So we got more on this in the principles of intensity later. Rule number 8. Does the target lever go through the optimum resistance curve? To decide if the target muscle is being worked efficiently, the operating lever of the target muscle must pass through the correct resistance curve. The resistance curve is the pathway that the active lever or bone takes through space as the muscle contracts and elongates. In the most efficient resistance curve, the operating lever of the target muscle begins with the movement elongated and neutral with resistance. During the contraction of the muscle and lifting of the lever, it should at some point in the movement cross the resistance perpendicularly. The resistance curve, simply put, is a lever that ideally starts the movement parallel with resistance and continues through a complete movement subjected to various degrees of resistance. An example, let's go back to the bicep curl. During a bicep curl, while holding the weight in your hand at the beginning of the movement, before raising your forearm from your side, your bicep is not under any load due to the operating lever of the bicep being parallel with gravity or neutral. Midway through the movement, the resistance curve of the lever or bone should become perpendicular with gravity, as this makes it a maximally effective lever. At the midway point of the bicep curl, where your arm is bent at 90 degrees, the dumbbell is furthest away from your body as it can be in that position, meaning your forearm is as long as possible in relation to its position to your torso, making it a maximally active lever or a 100% lever. Now, this is because it is 100% perpendicular with gravity and as long as possible. Now, this equals the greatest possible magnification at force. As the movement progresses past the midway point, the lever will once again receive diminishing magnification as it passes through the final part of the resistance curve. So, during the bicep curl, as you are near full contraction of the movement, the dumbbell is once again closer to your body. This means a shortening of the lever in relation to your torso, equaling diminishing magnification to the target muscle, in this case, the bicep. This is perfect, as well as a natural resistance curve for the bicep. The bicep will begin the movement with a neutral lever, or the forearm bone, neutral with gravity. The muscle itself is then at a mechanical disadvantage. As the bicep lifts the forearm and the forearm becomes more perpendicular with gravity, as well as further away from the body, meaning the increase in magnification or load in the bicep, mechanical disadvantage diminishes and mechanical advantage takes over. Meaning, the muscle itself starts strongest when it's elongated, and as it pulls the operating lever and contracts, the muscle gets weaker due to the muscle fibers bunching up together. So think about what a bicep actually looks like. It's all bunched up. This follows the natural strength curve of the muscle, as well as the principles of mechanical advantage and mechanical disadvantage in physics. Now, rule number 9. Am I able to strictly control the weight? Exercises should always be performed with very deliberate muscle contractions. If you are looking for maximum efficiency, using momentum causes loss of efficiency due to the reduction in the resistance placed upon the target muscle. A good example would, again, let's go to the bicep curl. Cheat bicep curl. You guys have all seen this. So, in scenario 1, I would grab a pair of 75 pound dumbbells, sit down on an upright bench with my elbows held stationary at my side using an arm blaster or something like it. Do not allow my shoulders to slump forward and do not allow my back to come off the backrest of the bench. Then I could do my very, very best to perform a strict bicep curl. However, despite my best efforts, I would be completely unable to manage a single rep. Even if you were to come and put a gun next to my head and tell me you would shoot me if I did not lift the damn weight in a bicep curl, I would still be unable to perform a single rep provided my body was immobilized in this manner and only the bicep was the working muscle with no momentum generation allowed. Scenario 2. In an alternate scenario, if I'm allowed to stand with the dumbbells held at my sides and alternatively swing my arms up and down to perform bicep curls, I would be able to perform many of such curls with the 75 pounds. Now, this is for many different reasons, momentum generation being a key factor among them. However, I'm allowed to use the other muscles in my body to assist with the raising of the weight and the momentum generation. So just to name a few, my erector spinae, quads, glutes, calves, traps, basically anything I want. Now, obviously, if I'm wildly swinging the weight in this manner, allowing my levers to fold, allowing my entire body to swing the weight upwards using all of my muscles I feel like, I could perform many of such bicep curls. However, the only productive thing about this would be the stroking of my own ego. So, if I was genuinely concerned with maximally gaining muscle safely and efficiently, I would select a pair of 50-pound dumbbells and repeat the steps from scenario 1, basically raising the weight correctly and lowering it correctly until I would be achieving failure around the 12th rep. Now, this is because 50 pounds will allow me to fail around 12 reps. Then I would perform 2 more sets of the same exercise till failure. But more on this in rule number 10, by the way. But performing a resistance exercise under control means you are selecting a load or a weight that will enable you to move through space for a set number of reps until achieving failure correctly and under control. The contracting of the muscle or the concentric portion of the resistance exercise is always the weakest portion of the movement, and the eccentric or the elongating of the muscle is always the strongest portion of the movement. The eccentric or the lowering of the load is roughly 4 times stronger than the concentric or the raising of the load. In simple translation, you should contract the target muscle as rapidly as possible under control, and when lowering the load, it should be lowered roughly 4 to 5 seconds in most cases to receive maximum benefit or muscle damage. This is really important stuff in case you didn't know it, guys. Obviously, this is not how you see most people performing their exercises. Now, this means they're actually missing out on 3/4 of the benefit of their exercise, as most of the muscle damage occurs during the eccentric or the lowering of the load, not during the lifting of it. And again, most people use momentum to lift the load anyways. Rule number 10, principles of intensity. Understanding the science of bodybuilding terms of the mechanical physics has now been addressed. So now, let's talk about the next part, exercise physiology. I will address the biochemical changes that result in muscle growth. These are well known and understood, as is the stimulus necessary to induce these biochemical changes. As you know, while it is true that we differ in terms of the genetics, physical appearance, personality, and many other factors, the forces of physics affects all of our bodies universally, and all of our anatomy and all of our biochemistry are the same. And if it wasn't, doctors, pharmacies, vitamin shops, you name it, they would be out of the job. Now, these changes in our human chemistry, which allow for the growth of new muscle tissue, remain consistent throughout all humans. Mountains and mountains of data and evidence of the past century, as well as simple logic, have shown with absolute certainty that the only way to rapidly grow new muscle tissue is with high intensity. If you need a muscle to come back stronger than it was before, you must challenge it in a way it has never been challenged, so it is broken and then forced to adapt, recover, and come back stronger or with more muscle fibers. Intensity, as it applies to bodybuilding, can be defined as one's temporary ability to put forth 100% effort in pursuit of muscle damage. By forcing the muscle to do more than it has before, you cause the body to use all of its reserve ability, since the body has only relatively small quantities of reserve ability to utilize before tissue loss occurs. Our bodies will then protect themselves. They will do this by enlarging their normal ability through a compensatory backup of more muscle mass. Only high-intensity training can force the body to resort to its reserve ability to significantly stimulate compensatory muscle growth. Repeating exercises or movements that you can already comfortably perform have no benefit in terms of muscle growth. An additional benefit of high-intensity muscular contraction is it prevents even the possibility of many such contractions within a given unit of time. So, this is because intensity and duration exist in an inverse ratio to each other. You can either produce maximum intensity or you can train long, but you cannot do both. More on this in Rule 11, by the way. Carrying a set to a point where you are forced to utilize 100% of your momentary ability is the single most important factor in increasing your size and strength. Working to this point of failure when another rep is impossible, despite the greatest effort, ensures that you have succeeded in true failure. Rule 11. Using correct volume and recovery time. To some, just putting in a lot of effort in the gym equals a high-intensity training session. To others, sweating a lot while they're in the gym means high intensity. Some, breathing hard. To others, the word intensity means training with heavier weights and doing each set to complete and total musculature failure, where the weight cannot be moved at all because of the musculature failure. The correct definition of high-intensity training. Training with heavier weights and fewer reps means the most efficient gains in size and strength, as well as maximum recovery time and no lactic acid-induced muscle soreness. Training with lighter weights and less rest time between sets is not nearly as productive for muscle growth and recovery. In addition, your workouts will take 3 to 4 times longer to complete, and you will not damage your muscle as efficiently. Using the lightweight to training failure system does not impose a significant degree of metabolic stress on the muscle, which in turn activates muscle protein synthesis and subsequent muscle mass gains, but no strength due to lack of sufficient muscular tension, even with training to failure with light weights. Regardless of who you are or how advanced in your training you are, lifting proportionately heavy weights with more rest between sets is more likely to produce greater gains in muscular size and strength compared to lifting more moderate weights and taking shorter rest between sets. You must have the intensity and you have to train real close to failure or to failure, one or the other, and the weight has to be one that challenges you. Rule 12, frequency of exercise. Now, if you follow all of the above principles correctly, meaning you have chosen the most efficient exercises, performed them with maximum efficiency, and for the correct number of sets, then your muscles have with absolute certainty been broken to the point where they must be forced to adapt and grow. But your job is not yet done. Now, you have the vital task of ensuring your body's proper recovery and timing your next training session correctly. As I have mentioned above, for every set you complete, you are essentially digging a hole into your reserve of resources. For every set you perform, you increase the depth of the hole. Before you can begin creating a mountain of muscle, you must first fill in this big hole that you have dug while performing your exercise sets. The more sets performed, the more resources depleted. You only have a set amount of resources to repair, replenish. So, recovery is an individual process based on genetics, food consumption, sleep, supplementation, age, hormones, and several other factors, but people in general fall on a bell curve, provided they are not taking anabolics or a genetic freak. So for the general human being, following the above principles to the letter, and provided your sleep, protein, supplementation, etc. are adequate, you should rest between 8 and 9 days before retraining the same muscle group again. Yes, I said between 8 and 9 days before retraining the same muscle group. Example, so let's just say Monday you perform 3 sets till failure, each of the bicep curl, tricep press, abdominal crunch, and back extension. You would not train those muscles again until 8 days had passed, or the next Tuesday. The other 7 days of the week you would fill in with your other exercises for your other muscle groups, or you would make off days from exercise. You would repeat the same schedule every week so each muscle group is trained the correct number of days in between. So the first thing you will need to decide when it comes to frequency is how are you going to be structuring your workouts? Do you want to train full body during one workout? Do you want to divide your workouts into a 2-way, 3-way, or 4-way split? The decision will be based on your current age, health, goals, time constraints, level of discipline, and many other factors. The most efficient plan, in my opinion, would be a 5-way split program. It allows each workout to be completed in roughly 30 minutes. The 5-way split allows you to target all of the muscles on your body, and you also have plenty of recovery time, plus 3 days off completely from exercise. There are roughly 14 major muscle groups that should be exercised, as well as several others which could be added to one's exercise program, depending if they want to work these additional muscle groups. Their ambitions would matter, what their end goal is, what sport they play. But these have already been addressed during rule number 7. So here is a sample I'll provide for you guys of what a typical 5-day workout program would look like, provided that your schedule allows for it. So it's really simple. On day 1, let's say it's Monday, that'll be chest and back for you. So for your pectorals, you'll be doing decline chest press, 3 sets till failure. Then you'll be doing your lats. So you'll be doing a lat pull, 30-30 lat pull. And your middle trapezius, you'll be performing a scapular retraction. Now, each one of those exercises will be performed 3 sets till failure, and you'll be rotating them. Now, day 2. Day 2 would be Tuesday. This would be your main leg day. So you'll be doing, for your quads, you'll be doing leg extension. Again, 3 sets till failure. Hamstrings, hamstring curl, calves, single leg calf raise. And your glutes, be a glute press, 3 sets till failure. Now, all of these exercises have different variations. You want to select the most efficient one for you, by the way. Day 3, Wednesday, you should take it off from exercise. Keep doing your cardio, but take it off from exercise. Day 4, Thursday, shoulders and upper traps. So you'll be doing front delt press for your front deltoid. For your lateral deltoid, lateral raises. For your posterior deltoid, rear delt pull. And for your upper trapezius, shrugs. Once again, all of these 3 sets till failure, and you'll be cycling through them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're done. Day 5, Friday, this will be your arm day. You'll be doing biceps, bicep curl, 3 sets till failure. Triceps, tricep press, 3 sets till failure. Forearm extensor, forearm raise, 3 sets till failure. Forearm flexor will be your forearm curl, 3 sets till failure. I'm going to keep saying it so it sticks in, guys. 3 sets till failure, meaning the target muscle no longer moves. It's hard. Day 6, Saturday, this will be your secondary leg day. You'll be doing your abductors, your leg lifts, your adductors or your leg pulls, and your psoas. This will be a leg curl. And again, all of these 3 sets till failure. Day 7, Sunday, be your core day, your torso day, whatever you want to call it. You'll be doing your abdominals, crunches, your obliques, side crunch, your obliques again, side twist, your rector spinae, back extensions. And finally, day 8, Monday, off. Day 9, Tuesday, you can either take an extra day off if you're too beat up, or if you're feeling okay, restart the program. Now, this is just a sample schedule that I recommend, and only one of many ways you can execute these exercises in the correct plan. These same 5 days could be spread out over 2 days, or 4 days, or 8 days of the week. The last option, however, can usually not be sustained for an extended period of time. I believe it is important to have a minimum of 1 or 2 days per week completely off for exercises. Give you a mental break, kind of. This intensity is very challenging to actually achieve. But again, this will vary from individual to individual. And again, guys, if you are taking anabolics, this just shortens your recovery window. You don't have to wait 8 or 9 days. You can wait 5 days or 6 days. That's about the only difference. So guys, these are the 12 rules of intelligent bodybuilding. I hope it helps. Make sure you leave a like, share, comment, subscribe. Questions, comments, leave them below. Guys, you know how to reach me. I hope this helps everyone.